Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. So, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a lot of weird archetypes, we all know this. Valance is Skylanders, Adamancipators is Where's Waldo, and Goki is Solitaire. But this one, I don't know what to make of this. All through Cyberstorm Access's spoiler season, I was hoping for some kind of expansion on this, but nope. This is just a really strange archetype that's surprisingly good. Some themes ask you to eschew the extra deck, like Monarchs, but few have asked you to start the game with one, only to chew through all that paper and not like Dogmatica. We don't get the benefit from cards like Herald, Intis, or Skull Knight, because they're all going to be banished face down. It's so out there that it breaks the usual formatting of my opening. So, to help get our heads around all this, let's get right into the action. This is Nemurelia Explained. Now, normally we start these videos by categorizing the cards, trying to put some kind of rhyme or reason to how the archetype comes together, but nothing like that is going to do this justice. So here's a quick summary. Our deck is helmed by a single pendulum monster that hangs out in the extra deck for most of the game, letting their big protector monsters handle the field until the extra deck has run out of face-down cards, at which point said pendulum hits the field with some of the most powerful removal I've ever seen. Thematically, that pendulum monster is a little girl that's just having a snooze, while the protectors are giant monsters made of sweets in a candy dream, which makes this a strange cross between Madolche and Dream Mirror. Are you starting to see why I'm a little off center on this one? So let's just dive right into this. The entire deck revolves around Dreaming Nemurelia, a level 1 light fairy pendulum monster with 0 attack and 1500 defense and a scale of 8. As a pendulum spell, once per turn, you can place a Nemurelia continuous spell card from your deck or grave face up on your field, and if you do, this card is added to your extra deck face up. But you can't special summon copies of this card the turn you activate this effect. As a monster, Nemurelia can't be normal summoned or set, and must be special summoned from the face-up extra deck by having no cards in your extra deck except copies of this card. You can only special summon copies of this card once per turn, and if this card is special summoned, you can banish up to one card your opponent controls and or is in their grave face down for every 3 of your face down banished cards, then shuffle your face down banished cards into the deck equal to the number of cards banished by this effect. Ooh, that is a mouthful. So let's walk through how this works step by step. We activate Nemurelia in the Pendulum Zone, then activate its effect to set our currently only continuous spell in our Spell and Trap Zone, at which point we put Nemurelia in our face-up extra deck. From there, you use various effects and costs to banish your face-down extra deck face down, because once it's all gone, you can summon Nemurelia. Now, extra deck sizes are gonna vary depending on what you choose to run, but if you're at the maximum of 15, you're gonna have at least that many banished face-down cards, which means at an exchange rate of 3 to 1, you're banishing 5 of your opponent's cards between their field and grave without targeting a single one of them. And then you have to reset that many of your face-down banished cards. That is a devastating amount of removal that can pick apart just about any setup. And if Nemurelia gets tributed or destroyed, they just go right back to the extra deck to be used again. And if you decide to banish your main deck cards face down as well, you can get even more value. Dang, no wonder they're so sleepy. They're carrying this entire archetype. Get some rest, Nemurelia. You've earned it. Next up are the Protectors. Nemurelia's Dream Defender, Kuet, is a level 10 light beast monster with 2000 attack and 2500 defense, and if you have a face-up pendulum monster in your extra deck, you can special summon this card from your hand. And when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets any number of Nemurelia cards you control while you have a face-up Dreaming Nemurelia in your extra deck, as a quick effect, you can banish a face-down card from your extra deck face down to negate the activation. The stats are a little wonky on this one, especially for a level 10, but Kuet is going to be integral to keep your opponent off your cards until your game plan is online. It's kinda bad that once you go for the Dreaming Nemurelia summon effect to banish a whole bunch of cards, that implies that you won't have anything in your extra deck to banish to fuel Kuet's negate, so it's not very useful during that window specifically, but when it comes to setting everything up, this is a must-have. You know, because it gives your archetype blanket protection. Nemurelia's Dream Defender, Urei, is a level 10 light beast monster with 2500 attack and 2000 defense that you can also special summon from your hand if you have a face-up pendulum monster in your extra deck. And if you have a face-up Dreaming Nemurelia in your extra deck, as a quick effect, you can banish a face-down card from your extra deck face down, and this card gains 500 attack for each monster your opponent currently controls until the end of this turn. So, where Kuet was your defensive monster, Urei is your bruiser, hitting the board with a respectable stat line that can quickly and easily get out of control. Even a single monster in its way grows them to 3000, and it only gets bigger from there. And because this is a quick effect, it's going to be a little tough to catch this creature off guard. Trust me, this is one pillow fight your opponent's going to want to avoid. Sweet Dreams Nemurelia is a normal spell card that adds a Nemurelia monster from your deck to your hand. Then, if you have a face-up Dreaming Nemurelia in your extra deck, your opponent can't activate cards or effects when any number of Nemurelia monsters are normal or special summoned this turn. You can place this card from your grave on the bottom of your deck, then target a Dreaming Nemurelia you control and add it to your extra deck face up. So this serves two very important functions. It either gets everything started by getting you the Dreamer, or ensures that Nemurelia's effect will go off without a hitch, since the monster effect triggers on summon. Though remember, you won't be able to effectively use both, since you can't special summon Nemurelia the turn you use their pendulum spell effect. The grave effect is also just kinda there to reset Nemurelia without having to wait for your opponent to do it on their own. Sure, you could link it off using the cards you would have just returned to the extra deck, but then that's less cards that you get to banish face down. That makes this card the complete package. It's pretty sweet. No, wait, the dreams are literally sweet. They already did the pun for me. I'll sleep on it. I'm sure I'll think of something funny eventually. The Sleeping Beauty Tower of Nemurelia is a continuous spell card that can banish 2 face-down cards from your extra deck face down to add 2 level 10 beast monsters with different names from your deck to your hand, but you can't special summon from the extra deck the turn you activate this effect, except pendulum monsters. And if any number of Nemurelia monsters you control would be destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, while you have a face-up Dreaming Nemurelia in your extra deck, you can banish a face-down card from your extra deck face down instead. This is going to help you get your Guardians onto the field so they can establish your board presence, while also providing some great protection after the fact. And it's not once per turn, so as long as you have face-down cards in your extra deck, your monsters are basically untouchable, since Kuet can swap away any attempts at targeting this card. It's a tower that turns your monsters into towers! How cool is that? Okay, so now that we've gone through all of these, I want to give a brief overview on how this is all supposed to shake out, because it might not be apparent just by looking at them. First, you start with Dreaming Nemurelia, or the spell Sweet Dreams Nemurelia to search that monster. Then, you scale them in the Pendulum Zone, using their effect to place towers in the back row, moving Nemurelia to the face-up extra deck. Now that you have Tower, you can banish 2 cards from your face-down extra deck face down to get both Kuet and Urei, both of whom you can now special summon because Nemurelia is a face-up pendulum monster in your extra deck. So at this point, you have the Nemurelia set up in your extra deck, 2 level 10 beasts on board, and towers active on your field, with 13 cards in your face-down extra deck. From this point on, we want to play cards that reduce our extra deck size, preferably by banishing those cards face down so we can get the most out of Nemurelia's effect for when we push for game. The question is, what can we play to help them out? The first place we're going to want to look at are the cards that use banishing face down as a cost or some kind of drawback. Pot of Extravagance is great for this because not only does it draw you cards, it takes out 40% of your extra deck all at once. Another card that's invaluable to our strategy is Eater of Millions. People will generally banish 5 cards from their extra deck face down to summon this card because that's the bare minimum, but it states you can banish 5 or more. So as long as you still have at least 5 cards left in your extra, or it can be even less if you don't mind banishing cards from other zones, Millions can just carve out the rest of your extra deck, and now Nemurelia is online. Gizmek Orochi also provides you with some great utility, and while its removal effect may or may not be online at any given moment, an extra 8 face-down banished cards means 2 more cards you can banish with Dreaming Nemurelia. And bonus, the more main deck cards you banish face down, the less you have to put back in your extra deck, which means less work goes into re-establishing your pendulum effect. Golden Castle of Stromberg is a funny card that gives you access to monsters like Hextrude and Glyph the Phantom Bird. In fact, the more I talk about it, the more I want to recommend adding Grenmaju. The attack power on that is absurd. And if you want to play even more wacky cards, try out Ledger of Legerdemain. It grows your face down banish pile by 3 for a couple turns, and then you just get 3 cards. The funny thing about towers is that it can search you any 2 level 10 beasts, so the question is, are there any other targets? And surprisingly, the answer is yes. They can grab both the Beast Yosenju Pendulum monsters, and while it may not be particularly useful in our deck, this does mean you can tech this into Yosenjus. I'm sure they've got a few extra deck monsters they don't mind banishing. This even caters to the jank crowd, because this can search Androsphinx, Sphinx Telea, and Thenin the Great Sphinx, from the Pyramid of Light movie. Ain't that a blast from the past? But speaking of gigantic beasts, Couette and Ourier can actually be splashed into pendulum decks in general. After all they ask for is a face-up pendulum monster in the extra deck. No matter what deck you put it in, Ourier is still just as powerful of an offensive threat, and while Couette is less useful in a diluted version of the deck, running it means you can search both of them off of towers if you splash in that engine, and if you want the bonus attack power, you kinda have to, and can protect all of them besides. And on top of that, if you're playing them in a deck that uses its extra deck a bit more, these do make for excellent Gustav Max materials. Unless you activated the tower search that turn, in which case you're gonna have to wait a bit. As for a silly tech pick, well, rituals in general, I think. We don't get to access the extra deck for powerful game enders, and this theme is so small on its own that we have plenty of room. The incantation restriction basically doesn't mean anything. Our normal summon can be saved for Manju, or we could be bold and use the beasts as free tribute fodder for Choju to get even more value. The megaliths provide a ton of utility, and the beasts give you all the levels you could ever want for ritual summoning. It's a match made in heaven. And who knows what that new cooking ritual archetype in Wild Survivors is gonna do. If it somehow matches up with the candy archetype, I'm gonna scream. And that's all I have to say about Nemurelia. I think keeping an eye on this theme would be a good idea, because despite how weird and insular the archetype might be, Runic looked like that as well, and is now a huge engine that's utilized by a ton of decks. I'm not exactly sure how, but that's the cool thing about this community. Even when something seems impossible, we've got a lot of big dreamers to help cook stuff up. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Do Nemurelia's Tower of Flapjack stack up, or are they more of a flopjack? And make sure to like and subscribe so we can get to Akiza Explained at 50k, and share this video with someone you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode was brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander Green Knight, Nebula Navigator's 3rd Dynasty, Adam Zajdel, Avi Chali, Kane Senpai, Cameron Berg, Chibi Gohan, Eric, Frankie, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Gloomba331, Great Big Pillock, Hairbear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Howling Zangetsu, Iskander711, Ironic, John Manji, Julius Sneezer, Larakia, Mana Charge, Marluxia is a Girl, Meteornus, Michael Madsen, Mighty Action X, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, Rem T Bright, RJ the Jank Monarch, Ruxith Sarani, Sophie, apparently, the Charizard Flame, the Fresh Prince of Conair, the Wizard Moose and Xander Wolfensberger, Cosmic Crusaders Ariel Kersey, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Chaz Ghost, Chris Kessler, Corbinisms, Danny Bound, Emily, Eva Padilla, Herbal D, Jesus Garcia, Kale the Dragon, Carp, King Scarlet Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lord Whoop-De-Doo, Manga Pages, Marion James E. Picata, Matt Simmons, Neo Trinity 7, Nitromo, put a card trooper up my ass, call that a card trooper an ass sandwich, but Noah Jenk calls it lunch, I vote for Ophion to be banned, Sarah Losulci, Shooting Star 3300, Star-Lord 777, Super Purd, Tucker Ordorn, and the Legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. I'm only able to continue doing this thanks to the support of these lovely people, so if you'd like to be a part of these credits, help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, and get all my videos just a little bit early, please check out my YouTube membership or Patreon links in the description to see if I have anything you'd like on offer. And if you'd like to see another video about a weird archetype, check out this video I have covering Valance. And if you want to see 2 Yu-Gi tubers going at it, check out Noah Jenk and I's latest series Progression Polls, where your voice shapes the format. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.